I'm Jane Turner from writewithjane.com, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the first of our 2022 series of Authors in Conversation. And I can't think of anyone I would rather have launching the year with me than Randy Peyser. Randy is the author of 3 books, including the Write a Book program, Crappy to Happy, as featured in the movie Eat, Pray, Love, and The Power of Miracle Thinking. As well as writing her own books, Randy edits and ghostwrites books for others. And best of all, she helps people get book deals with New York publishers. Her author's books have been featured in Oprah magazine and Time magazine, and they've also appeared on the Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller lists, as well as being on Hallmark TV, in airport bookshops, in big box stores, and having been optioned for Hollywood movies. Now today, Randy is going to help you to understand what publishers are looking for and what readers will buy, so that you can position yourself to get a book deal just like Randy's clients do. So if you'd like to get in touch with Randy, you can reach out to her at www.authoronestop.com. Welcome, Randy. I cannot wait to hear the story of how your book got featured in a Hollywood movie. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So the book is called Crappy to Happy because we want to be moving in the right direction. And so I had written, it was my first book, and I had been looking for a publisher for many years, finally did find a publisher, then started helping other people, with their publishing deals. And on the opening night of Eat, Pray, Love, the movie Eat, Pray, Love with Julia Roberts, I'm sitting in a movie theater with a group of girlfriends. 8 of us went out to dinner, and it was like, hey, it's the opening night of Eat, Pray, Love, let's go to the movies. And we were in Santa Cruz, California at the time. And I'm just sitting watching the movie, and there's my book, Crappy to Happy, being held up in the movie in a bookstore scene, and Julia Roberts is buying it, and it gets a big audience laugh. I had no idea that my book was going to be in the movie. I just didn't know. I just sat there. I don't even know what happened in the next 10 minutes of the movie. It was like, oh my God. It was just one of those moments. And then sales started increasing on my Crappy to Happy book. So that was really lovely.
Boy, you could not have constructed a better marketing tool than that for your book. And what a pinch yourself moment in that cinema.
Yes. And, I had a former landlord who I ran into who worked in the Hollywood film industry. And I asked him, how would my book have wound up in the movie? And he said, oh, a props person would have put it in there. Well, I know that because I had a traditional publisher, I also knew my book was in the Bodhi Tree bookstore down in, Hollywood, LA area. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure that's probably where a props person found it. And that's how it wound up in the movie. But I didn't know it. I didn't know about it, and I had nothing to do with it. But it was exciting.
Exciting. And I guess it is a testament of the power of a great book cover as well. Your book cover is eye-catching. And what I love about it now, of course, which wouldn't have had this at the time because it hadn't happened yet, but on the bottom of the pig on the cover, you have as featured in the movie.
As featured, yeah. After the book came out in the movie, then the cover got changed. So it says, as featured in the movie, Eat, Pray, Love, right on the cover of the book in little print. But yes.
And that's just about the amazing things that can happen when you put yourself out there and write a book. You really never know where the ripple effect is going to take you. And I'm curious to know then, what got you into the business of helping people to find a literary agent? Because I know that's not easy to do.
Yes, I'd been looking, as I mentioned, for a publisher for my book for 4 years, going to New York at the big feeding frenzy for the publishing industry in the United States, and I'm making connections, and it just took a number of years before I made the right connection, and then my career just took off, and I very organically, it was kind of like, oh, I have these connections now, maybe I can help you. It was just a very subtle thing, like this is over 20 years ago. But, I'm going to help 1 or 2 friends. I'm going to go to New York. And my connections just grew over the years to the point where I didn't have to hustle and run around the giant, show floor looking for agents and publishers, because I had made so many connections as the years grew that, like now I have, 20 plus years of relationships with top literary agents and publishers. And so, I decided to really dedicate myself to especially helping first-time authors, because most first-time authors are going to have a heck of a time trying to get an agent to even consider your work. And I have agents who tell me, Randy, I'm getting 1,000 submissions a month. I'm not even looking at my email. When you have something for me, text me first.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so to have relationships, the real relationships, in place with agents who I can text, or another agent who has done, some 6-figure deals for some of my clients. And she says, Randy, I hope you know I fast track every project you send my way. Well, why? Because I've given her projects that have gotten her 6-figure deals. And not every project obviously is going to get a 6-figure deal, but she's still going to fast track the projects I send to her and take them very seriously. And, that's just based on years and years of relationships, and actually, only pitching manuscripts that are stellar, that we've deemed are stellar. And I have a process that the manuscripts go through to make sure. So what I like to do is, I always offer people, just let's have a 15-minute conversation, just a very, very brief chat. And I know how to guide the conversation so that I can get the information that I need, so I can convey education to every person I speak with, because publishers have certain demands, and I have to know if the author has the ability to meet certain demands. And so, I know, for example, the statistics side of things, which publishers need to sell how many books in a year, and what does the author need to have in place to prove the sale of that book. So I understand both the content side and what I call the business of publishing side, because they're separate conversations, but they're equally important. So the advice that I would give authors is have a conversation with me. That's it. Because if you haven't started writing your book, I'm going to be speaking with you about your right positioning. If you've written your book, I'm also going to be looking at the positioning to know, is this subject, are you bringing something new to this subject? Are you bringing something new to the conversation that's happening around this subject? So publishers will get excited about your book. So, I just really know when I'm speaking with somebody, the plan formulates oh man, I've got it. Okay, this is the sequence. This is what needs to happen with this particular project. And, I always tell people I'm not attached as to whether somebody wants to self-publish or traditional publish. I just really want what's highest and best for each person based on their goals and their dreams. And, so that's one of the things I'm going to ask people, do you want a traditional publisher? Do you want to self-publish? Do you know the difference? And I'll explain the pros and cons of both approaches so people can really make an informed choice that's going to support them. Now, to what you were saying a little while ago about you never know what can happen. My book, Crappy to Happy, winds up in a movie. But for my first-time authors, I've had one of my authors' books was in every FedEx office store around the country. Two of them have been in airport bookstores. One was picked up for Office Max stores. One was in Oprah magazine. Got a full page feature in Oprah. And so you just never know. Cosmo just called one of the books we did, Power Your Profits, number 17 best nonfiction book 2020. And, Publishers Weekly chose Words Whispered in Water. It's a whistleblower book, as one of their top picks. So there are things we don't even know, what can happen. But typically, I think magic happens when people have a book that comes out through a traditional publisher. New doors will open for them that they just could not get open with a self-published book.
Fantastic. You mentioned a book there, Words Whispered in Water.
Yes.
What a fabulous title. Do you have advice for people about titles?
Oh, totally. Oh my God. So the original title, this is a whistleblower book related to Hurricane Katrina and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and their fault with it.
Wow.
That led to the deaths of 200 people. So the author had a title that referenced the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in the title. And I looked at it and went, And so I started just looking through text, and she had a quote in there. She was saying, "Beware of words whispered in water." And I saw that, I went, whoa, words whispered in water. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you another example. There's a book here up here behind me on my list here that was called Stretched. That was the author's title. I thought, not going to do it. And so I started again looking through the text. And this author, Hajat Candes, she grows up in Sierra Leone. And she talks about in one scene how she's looking up at the sky, the night sky, and there were 1,000 stars. And so I titled the book, and she loved it, Daughter of 1,000 Stars. Well,
right.
I mean, it's just this gorgeous title, and it really reflects the prose that her writing was just gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things, think about the prevalence of titles that become New York Times bestsellers that have the word girl or daughter in them. Gone Girl, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the Memory Keeper's Daughter. I mean, and so it's just like, yeah, I'm always, in touch, like what are the kinds of titles that are trending?
What I'm sensing here is you meld instinct with experience. And is there a more powerful chemistry than that? It's fantastic.
That's very true. I have a come from place with everyone. And this is my intention behind anything and everything I do. And I ask for divine right clients for whom I can create phenomenal results. That's it. I'm asking for their divine right publisher. Wow. I just want what's right for each person. That's really, that's the way I am. And I'm not attached to what that looks like.
Beautiful. From your own experience as an author, what have you learned about yourself?
One of the things that I wrote in Crappy to Happy is sorrow digs the well and joy fills it. It's one of my most favorite quotes that ever came out of me. And, I would do all these book talks. And again, my book came out many years ago, Crappy to Happy. It's still going, but it came out many years ago. And so when I would do my book talks, like in bookstores, this is way pre-COVID, and people would say, well, are you happy? And that's a very fair question. And the way I answered it, because it was my understanding of how I grew in myself in the process of writing the book, I realized that I said, it's not realistic to just be like happy all the time. Life isn't always sunshine, rainbows, and lollipops, And so I said, but what I really have become, and this is very true, I've become a container in which I can hold many emotions simultaneously.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So that was a very big insight. I can feel sadness or sorrow about a loss. I can feel joy about the beauty of the day. There are just so many different feelings that I can hold because I've become a larger container in which I can hold more. And that really comes from doing the deep work of sorrow and grief. When I say sorrow digs the well and joy fills it, very, very true. It's my own personal experience that years ago, I went through a dark night of the soul, they call it. That's like where everything that can possibly fall apart in your life falls apart. It was many years ago. And I have this joke and I say, why do they call it a dark night of the soul? When it's never one night, it should be called the dark year and a half of the soul.
Too true.
Really, come on. Mm-hmm. And so during that time, I decided that I wanted to know if it was really possible to really be happy in life, because I hadn't. And so I created my life into an experiment in which I was really feeling the deep feelings of grief and sorrow of the multiple losses that had happened in my life at the same time. And what I discovered is that it was so painful to feel the difficult feelings of loss and grief, but I realized they would come in waves. And when the wave came, it was completely overwhelming, and I felt like I'd never get out of it. But then I would, and then there'd be like that a crescendo, and then just some peace for a while. Then whatever the wave, whenever it came, it would come again, and I'd be in tears or depression or whatever. And I realized, oh, these are waves, and I'm riding the waves. Just keep riding the waves, and they will bring me to a better shore. And what I learned in the process of really being willing to feel the difficult and painful feelings, that as all of that got expressed and cleared out, I had a greater capacity to hold that much more joy. So sorrow digs the well and joy fills it.
Wow. I'm a person who held on to grief I never even knew I had until my mid-40s. So I really acknowledge you for putting it that way. People who hear what you've just said may well be a little more open, not that these are conscious decisions we make per se, but may well feel a little more inclined to feel into the discomfort, inclined to be in some ways welcoming the grief and the pain, because as you say, what happens to the joy if the well's not there for it to feel? A slight twisting of what you said
That's
earlier.
right.
Mm.
Yes. Yes.
It's not a clean business being a human, is it really? You know, we can't, as much as I still come from that place I've come from, where, you know, we had the conversation earlier and I was feeling all uncomfortable and unrelaxed. And the thing I noticed with you when we had our initial conversation was how relaxed you were. And here we are, a bit chalk and cheese, but so much in common. And isn't that the thing about being human as well? You don't have to scratch the surface too much at all to find somebody who is, you know, just like you, who understands you, who you get to remember that we're not alone in our pain.
Yes.
Mm.
That's very, very true. And I wanted to share something. This is so profound, and it helped me, and it's helped so many people. It's another thing I wrote in the book, Crappy to Happy. And it actually comes from, I have a guitar partner, Deborah LaForest is her name. And she said, whenever she's a question, and she'll ask it many times a day, which is, what's the most loving thing I can do for me right now? What's the most loving thing I can do for me right now? And so in my year of experimentation to find happiness, I lived by the answer to that question too. And so, you know, I would hear, take a walk. Okay, go take a walk. What's the most loving thing I can do for me right now? Do the dishes. What's the most loving thing I can do for me right now? Get under your covers and cry. Whatever it was, I followed it until one day I heard sit. So I sat in the middle of my carpeted floor, cross-legged, at a time in my life when I could still sit on the floor, cross-legged, and get up. and and so I sat on my floor, and you know, every time I would ask, all I would hear was sit, do nothing. So I sat and did nothing. And then I decided, you know, my father's always giving donations to charities in Israel, and they would send all these Hanukkah candles. So I had a huge supply of Hanukkah candles. I decided I'm going to put Hanukkah candles in this menorah. I'm going to sit with the candles so they go out, which was an hour and 20 minutes a day. So when you sit an hour and 20 minutes a day, within 2 weeks, I was so silent inside. I said I could hear the silence of a flame. And from that place, I started thinking of these really, you know, all the different stories and different experiences I had lived in life. And I just started writing them. And that turned actually into my first book, which turned into my career helping authors. But it all came from just the answer, a simple answer to a question about what's the most loving thing I can do for me right now.
That's the best background to a book I've heard for a long time. How wonderful. That was your first book. And I know there is another book you're working on at the moment. Can you tell us more about that, Randy?
Sure. Well, the second book I wrote was called The Power of Miracle Thinking. And I actually have a lot of books that my work appears in, or that I appear in. But I'm working on a book right now. I'm working on two books right now. One is called The Little Book of Big Epiphanies.
Yes.
And what I'm looking for are very short stories, really profound stories from people. You know, people are welcome to submit a story if you think it might be really profound, and include what is the epiphany? What did you learn that is so powerful that somebody else reading that would go, oh my God, that is so cool. And it would really influence them and make a difference in their life. That's the kind of book I'm writing. Very short stories, you know, 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages, 5 pages, probably not longer than that, with a very powerful epiphany.
Beautiful. I love that. That's your project. That's your
Yes,
passion. And you found the place that you can do the best for other people, haven't you?
yes, yes. You know, and, you know, many people tell me I'm one of the most inspiring people they ever met, you know, which is a really lovely acknowledgement. But I really do care about people.
Mm.
And I care about providing information or resources for people that will help them, no matter what it is, really. I was helping a guy on LinkedIn recently who has a clothing line, and it's his dream to have it in retail stores. Well, I'm on faculty for an organization that goes across many different industries, and I made connections for him that are just lighting up his world. And so I love helping people. I helped one of my friends find her husband. It's like, it doesn't matter what it is.
That's an excellent
Yes, in
service.
fact, they've been together 25 years, and we have a joke, and we say, as long as it works out, I take full responsibility. If it doesn't work out, I had nothing to do with
That's
it.
right. It's up to you if it
so far, so good.
Fantastic. Yeah. Now, in a moment, people will see your trailer, because I'm using it as an example of this is how you make a trailer. It's one of the best trailers I've seen for a long time. And what I would love, though, is the background to what they'll see at the beginning of the trailer, where you're holding up the sign. That was
Author seeks publisher. It's quite funny. Yes,
that's right. Tell me about that.
When I was looking for a publisher for my book and I wasn't coming up with anyone, again, this is over 20 years ago, and I stood off the main freeway outside of San Francisco at rush hour from 4 to 5 p.m. people will see what I'm doing. And a publisher called me that evening when he saw my sign right off the road. And a publisher called me, and I became editor-in-chief of his national magazine. It was very funny.
Too good. Too good.
Yes.
And this is a great lesson for people about get out of your comfort zone. Don't be afraid of what people might think. And there is someone potentially out there. If they can't help you, they may know someone who can help you. You may get posted on social media with such a cute idea like that. An unassuming person by the side of the road with a sign, any number of things can catch people's attention. And you did it so beautifully there. So I think I want to wind up just by saying, really connect with Randy if you are wanting to get yourself connected with a literary agent, and just go ahead with that dream of yours. If that dream is to write a book, then it's not going to go away. That dream is there for a reason. And that may be part of that well that you'll be digging unconsciously to just fill up with the joy and happiness that is there for all of us. No matter how dark things may get, that's there for all of us.
Yes.
And Randy, so thank you so very much.
You're very welcome.
Randy Peyser's author career started from very humble beginnings. Today, Randy is recognized as a top speaker in the publishing industry. Randy shows first-time authors how to get book deals with traditional publishers. She's been pitching manuscripts for over 20 years. She knows exactly what publishers look for and buy.
Every year, there's a buzzword that circulates around the publishing industry. So I'm going to tell you what publishers are looking for right now.
Randy's authors have been USA Today bestsellers and Wall Street Journal bestsellers. They've been Publishers Weekly top picks. They've been in Time Magazine, in Oprah Magazine, in Cosmo, in airport bookstores, in FedEx Office and Office Max stores. Many books have won awards. They've been optioned for Hollywood film. There have been six-figure deals. And one of her own books was featured in the movie Eat, Pray, Love, starring Julia Roberts.
I have a very high success rate of helping people get agents and publishers for their books. I look forward to showing you what you need to know to get your book deal.
So how good was that? Now, if you're thinking, well, I want to write a book to see what the ripple effect for me will be, then I'd love you to reach out to me at jane@writewithjane.com, and I'll fill you in on how you can get started on writing that book of yours.